The U.S. dollar, which for decades has been the touchstone for international currency transactions, is under extreme pressure in Europe. And the people who can exert this pressure beyond all the natural laws of economics are the European bankers, more particularly Swiss bankers, and even more particularly the so-called gnomes of Zurich. Tonight we'll meet some of those bankers as we look into the wonderfully secret world of the Swiss numbered bank account. Switzerland, as that master documentarian of his time, Mr. Fitzpatrick, might have said, Switzerland is the Switzerland of Europe. This landlocked, mountain-girded country, a green Helvetian pasture in summer, and in winter, a winter wonderland. The oldest continuous democracy in Europe, neutral since 1351, untroubled by its quarrelsome neighbors, a haven of peace, the stillness broken only by God's own sounds. The people are as untroubled as the land, frugal, God-fearing. There are few things in life that can get a Swiss excited. This is one of them. It might be the only one. This is the Bourse in Zurich, the stock exchange. On the floor of the exchange, all that un-Swiss-like behavior is about money. Billions and billions of dollars worth of money. They're trading in British and French shares, Japanese and German shares, but mostly in shares listed on the New York Stock Exchange. They are also trading in money, betting that the franc or the pound sterling or the German mark will go up or down, and sometimes helping the currency along just a little bit. The great bulk of the money used in the Bourse is quite honestly earned after taxes money. But there are millions of dollars here, shuffling back and forth around the ring, that come from the twilight world of the Swiss numbered bank account. Underworld money. Money squirreled away by small shopkeepers and big stockbrokers. Money untaxed. Money the U.S. Internal Revenue Service knows about but cannot prove, because a Swiss banker will almost never tell. If you wanted to open a secret numbered bank account, as thousands of Americans have done, this is where you would come in Zurich, the Bahnhofstrasse. Behind these great barred windows and discreet little brass nameplates, there's wealth enough to finance a nation. This is where the gnomes of Zurich live. The Swiss bankers whose wealth and influence can start a run of confidence or despair on the American dollar or the British pound. And daily, millions of dollars pour in here from private individuals seeking a safe haven for what's called in Europe their mattress money, that little bit or great fortune that's tucked away from the groping hand of the Internal Revenue Service. Behind these windows, there's a man who, so long as you offer no answers, he'll ask no questions. Eberhard Huser of the Union Bank of Switzerland is such a man. Mr. Huser, supposing I came in here and wanted to open a secret numbered account, what do I have to do?
Well, you will have to show me your passport, and I would see if your identification is right, and then would pass you on this form here and would ask you the following questions: your name, surname.
A numbered account is really a secret investment fund. No one knows how much money is in your account, and no one knows how much the money is earning for you. The bank pays interest of only 4.5%, but for a charge of 0.1%, they'll invest it for you. You could make a killing on the market, and no one but you and your banker need ever know. And to keep the secrecy, no checkbooks. To make a withdrawal, you have to come and get the cash in person. Other transactions are made by coded telegram.
And then we will allot your number. And from this moment onwards, you will figure on your statement credit advices and other transactions as a number, while your name is separately kept and listed in a special register.
Who knows the identity of that number? How many people?
Very, very few people do know the identity of the holders of account.
And how about depositing money? What if I told you that that money was quite legally earned, but I'd never paid any taxes on it in the United States? Would you accept my account?
No. If you would tell me that this is not declared money in the United States, I will not accept it.
What if I didn't tell you?
Well, then it is not our duty to find out if this money is taxed, has been taxed or not.
And you wouldn't ask me?
And I would not ask you.
Your money and your name are in good hands. If Herr Huser divulged either to any authorities or any person, he would be liable for a heavy fine and prison sentence. Thus, confidence in the discretion of Swiss bankers, and as much confidence in their care and handling of money. There are other reasons for confidence in the Swiss and Swiss money, just a few steps down from Herr Huser's office. This is the gold room, the treasure room, as they call it, of the Union Bank of Switzerland. And one reason why this little coin, the Swiss franc, is so strong, why there's so much confidence in a Swiss bank account is this. The Swiss franc is covered by gold to the extent of between 90 and 100% of its face value. By contrast, the US dollar is covered by gold in Fort Knox by less than 25% of its face value. And for the curious, the gold in this trolley is worth precisely $620,000. And a few steps further along, comfortably seated in front of a Kokoschka litho of the Statue of Liberty, General Manager of the Union Bank and one of the biggest gnomes in Zurich, Nicholas Sen. Dr. Sen, would you deny that the Swiss banking system is attractive to unsavory characters?
It is certainly attractive because your money questions are dealt in a way that you know that except you do a crime, nobody else will know about your banking and money transactions.
How do you make the difference between dirty money and clean money?
For me, the money is not moral and not immoral. It's just round. If you go to an American bank and you deposit their money, do they ask you if you have declared it, or if it is a good money or a bad money or a wrong money? They never ask you.
But the Internal Revenue Service can get it with a phone call.
That's another question. That's another question. That's one of the main points, that other countries have to believe that the Swiss bank should be the police for them. And we don't like this role, because it is not the role of the banks at all, nowhere in the world.
Is it easy for someone to open an account with you without you knowing where the money comes from?
That is possible. The same story you always hear also from people of the mafia. It is quite well possible that we have within this bank money of such kind of persons without knowing it.
Does it ever bother the conscience of Swiss bankers but where some of the money that they're handling comes from?
If you start to bother about money, you have to be bothered always. If you bring me an account tomorrow and I start to ask exactly everything about your money, then I am nearly a priest, not a bank.
Switzerland's reputation for no questions asked financial management has given the place a special cachet, which attracts the beautiful people from far and wide. Perhaps it's just the smell of money that makes the most expensive ski slopes in Europe so spectacular.
Hier encore, j'avais 20 ans, je caressais le temps et jouais de la vie comme on joue de l'amour.
At a public restaurant, The beautiful people gather for lunch. Sleek American, British, Western European cats basking in the alpine sun, with names like Emilio, Fiona, Jeremy, and Gabriella. Bodies smoothed by Elizabeth Arden, dressed by Yves Saint Laurent. And the even more beautiful, and certainly beautifully rich. A world away from her subjects, the fair Princess of Persia, Farah Diba. Her husband, the Shah, like many an uneasy head before him, keeps a grand chalet in St. Moritz, far from the heat and oil of Iran. Gianni Agnelli, conservatively speaking, the richest man in Europe, owner of Fiat and a few minor Italian banks, arrives for a little skiing, and not far behind him, in his private little runabout, Herbert von Karajan. Conservatively speaking, the richest, most beautiful person in the world of serious music, the Lenny Bernstein of the giant slalom. All sorts of people, the good, the bad, and the rich, come to Switzerland for all sorts of reasons. They find it a spectacular haven of heavy money and light income tax. Everyone from ex-dictators to superstars, who quite legally enjoy Switzerland's token taxation by maintaining a residence there. Juan Perón fell out of favor in Argentina, but turned up in Switzerland with something like $15 million. The Burtons are residents of a rustic mountain villa in Gstaad, saving millions of dollars in taxes they would have paid if they kept an American or British address. King Farouk of Egypt had lived himself to death by 38. He left behind an Italian mistress and a Swiss numbered account. Noel Coward, the boy wonder of British drama, came to London to be knighted by the Queen. Had he stayed longer than a few days, he would have been hit by heavy British taxes. President Chombe left Africa when the Republic of Katanga fell, and the National Treasury went into a numbered account in Geneva. Charlie Chaplin understood the advantages of Swiss tax law long before the rest of Hollywood. It enabled him to ensure the financial future of his large family and his villa at Vaud. But for anyone living in Switzerland or doing business there, legally or otherwise, they must return to the Bahnhofstrasse, or a street like it in Geneva, or Zug, or Lucerne, or Lugano. Secrecy has always been part of Swiss banking, even before income tax existed. Bankers defend the secrecy law, which makes disclosure of name and bank balance punishable. They say it came into effect in 1934 as a means of protecting German Jews from Nazi fiscal and racial laws. The law did indeed protect German Jews, but it also protected Nazi officials, who also took advantage of Swiss banking secrecy when they put away millions of dollars of valuables seized from Jews in Germany and the occupied countries. Indeed, the numbers of some of the accounts could represent a pile of ashes at Auschwitz, or the retirement fund of an ex-Gauleiter growing happily old in Argentina. The big banks say they will not touch political money, but they also say they cannot hope to trace every account to its true source. But there are hundreds of small private banks, equally solvent, equally discreet, but perhaps a little less demanding of their clients' credentials. The biggest of the private banks is Julius Baer, banker. The president, Nicholas Baer, is remarkably frank for a Swiss banker. Supposing I was the dictator of some South American country, or we say Ruritania, and walked in here with $2 million. And I said, look, I don't want this known, I want it in a secret numbered account. What would you say?
First of all, usually he doesn't walk in. He comes through, he walks in only afterwards. Quite frankly, there the answer is yes, we would take him.
Even though the money, say, is half of the national treasury of that country?
I think it usually isn't half of the national treasury. Yes, Mr. Trujillo and his famous millions, unfortunately we never had any of that. But Usually it is smaller amounts. Yes, it goes maybe into $1 million or $2 million, but half the national product, it isn't.
It has been charged that Switzerland and Swiss bankers have benefited from economic persecution in other countries.
It's true. It's true. You can turn it around. We have benefited, but the persecuted have benefited too. The most important wave, the last wave, the German Jews in the 30s, we benefited from their accounts. I think they benefited even more, that they could put something out, and probably in the history of Swiss banking, the benefits have always been on both sides.
Does the fact that you're now obliged to release information on numbered accounts to the United States Internal Revenue Service mean that we're seeing the end of the secrecy, the end of the numbered account?
There are negotiations. We do give information in cases of fraud. We do give information on everything where there is a criminal offense according to our law. We do not know foreign exchange restrictions, and we do not know fiscal non-payment of taxes as a crime. Therefore, this is something where we do not give information. However, avoidance of taxes is one thing. Fraud is something else.
There are a lot of reports that the CIA and the KGB use Swiss banks as a conduit to pay agents.
I don't know. I would say they must probably be so clever that we wouldn't know that it is them. I don't think that someone would come in here and say, I am the resident head of KGB, or I'm the resident head of CIA. Will you act as my banker for me? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. I would quite frankly say probably yes, to some extent. But this, I trust both organizations that they do it so well that we don't know about it.
Harry Lime, one of the characters in the Graham Greene novel, The Third Man, said that under the Borgias, where political murder was commonplace, where the state was almost continuously at war, Italy produced Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. In 700 Years of Peace, the Swiss produced the cuckoo clock. That may be true, but Mr. Lime, one of the most nefarious characters in fiction and a profiteer of the very worst kind, would no doubt have put his money in a secret numbered bank account in Switzerland. People from far and near, better and worse than Harry Lime, come here for more than the magnificent mountain air, the ski slopes. So if you're very, very rich, or just like to look that way, then Switzerland, the land of yodeling and bland cheese, of smart set skiing and casual taxation, and secret bank accounts, Switzerland is the place for you.
Problem